Now let's continue with obviously one of the main topics of the day worldwide, which is that Trump plans a White House meeting with Zelensky and European leaders today. All the media outlets, of course, worldwide are talking about it. RT, for example, is reporting that US President Donald Trump has invited European leaders to join Ukraine's Vladimir Zelensky at the meeting at the White House on Monday, that is today. I can give you the friends list of individuals that gonna attend that meeting. So the leaders of EU countries, the heads of the European Commission and the NATO will take part in the meeting between the head of the White House, Donald Trump, and Vladimir Zelensky in Washington. Among them, French President Emmanuel Macron, Secretary General of the North Atlantic Alliance, Mark Rutte, Economic Commissioner, European Commissioner Ursula von der Leyen, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, Finnish President Alexander Stubb. As stated by the representative of the German government, Stefan Cornelius, the topic of their talks scheduled for Monday will be security issues, territorial aspects, support for Ukraine, and sanctions. We should not be surprised if Prime Minister of UK, Keir Starmer, will also attend that meeting, either physically or via video link, and number of other puppets of the globalists from Europe. Also, dear friends, of course, all the media outlets and public figures and ordinary citizens that are paying attention to these developments are sharing their opinions now, what is going to happen in Washington, what to be expected. Well, we're going to find out in a few hours' time. I mean, there is not really much point to enter this tsunami of speculations, but what we do know for sure is that Trump stated that Zelensky could end the conflict immediately, and seems like he is still, until now, on the same page with the Russian President Vladimir Putin and Russia, basically, which is that we want to see final resolution of their conflict, not some temporary measures, but final resolution of their conflict, actual peace, lasting peace, right? It's not going to be easy, of course. It's not going to be easy, but if America First Forces in US will maintain initiative and pursue this current trajectory, of course, chances to actually achieve peace is going to be much more higher than if US is again fails to control from the globalists or the globalist narratives, right? It might happen too. So Ukrainian leader Vladimir Zelensky could bring the fighting with Russia to a halt immediately by agreeing to a settlement that rules out NATO membership and entails territorial concessions. US President Donald Trump has stated, we have a quote here, Zelensky can end the war with Russia almost immediately if he wants to, or he can continue to fight, Trump wrote on his Truce social network on Sunday. Also another quote, remember how it started, not getting back Obama given Crimea 12 years ago without a shot being fired, and not going into NATO by Ukraine. Some things never change, he said. And yet again, let's see if America First Forces will maintain this attitude and manage to keep Trump out of influence of the globalists and globalist puppets that are gonna visit Washington today, and definitely gonna try to persuade Trump to give up on the current position and to support completely, fully, whatever agenda globalists have. In a few hours' time, we're gonna find out which way will situation develop. Also, excuse me, also, dear friends, we have this report from RT that Rubio, Secretary of State of US, Marco Rubio, issued a sort of a warning to Ukraine which is interesting. So the US does not intend to force Ukraine into a peace agreement with Russia, but Kiev must realize that the conflict is going to get worse if it is not resolved now. US President Donald Trump said earlier the warring parties were pretty close to end following a summit with his counterpart Vladimir Putin in Anchorage. So Rubio told CBS, by the way, during their interview on Sunday that there is no conditions that can be imposed on Ukraine. Ultimately, it's up to Ukrainians to decide on whether to accept an agreement with Russia. However, it is clear that after 3.5 years, this war is getting worse. It's not getting better. It's going to get worse. The secretary stated, and by the way, it is also important to notice, I believe, that Rubio, during their interview, once again highlighted that currently, at least for this moment, it seems like that Washington is maintaining a position that was made public by Trump himself, which is that White House prefers a sustainable peace over temporary measures. That is a temporary ceasefire too, that globalist and globalist control regimes in Europe were so desperately trying to push over Russia or to implement, right? Because they want a break for their proxy regime that is suffering severe setbacks on the battlefield, right? And let me give you short video of statements that Marco Rubio made. Let's listen to it. And
off the table, Mr. Secretary?
No, it's not off the table. I think what the president said, in fact, you just read it on the air a few moments ago, it was agreed to by all that the best way to end this conflict is through a full peace deal. There's no doubt about that. I mean, who would be against the fact if tomorrow we came to you and said we have a full peace deal and it's done? I think that's the best way to end the war. Now, whether there needs to be a ceasefire on the way there, well, we've advocated for that. Unfortunately, the Russians, as of now, have not agreed to that. But the ideal here, what we're aiming for here is not a ceasefire. What we ultimately are aiming for is an end to this war.
So, I mean, he is quite clear there, isn't it? That currently, yet again, I mean, this position of Washington may flip literally any time, isn't it? We have seen such developments many times before, when today Trump or any other high-ranking official in US says one thing and tomorrow completely opposite. So therefore, I'm not that confident that same stuff not going to happen again and Washington not going to change its stand. But for today, for 18th of August, it is clear that Washington is on the same page with Moscow and prefers sustainable peace to be reached, not some temporary solutions, right? Like 30-day ceasefire or stuff like that, which is good, by the way, which is good. Clearly, if Washington maintains this position, as I already said, we might actually have a good chances to reach, to end this proxy war that West is waging against Russia and to actually end death of so many people, militaries, and also destruction. Let's see how strong Washington will be under the assault of the globalists. And globalists gonna try, by the way, globalists gonna try to influence Washington's stand for sure. I mean, there can be no doubts about that. And globalists, unfortunately, have their allies in US too, quite powerful allies among Zionists, among neocons in deep state. Nothing to be said about Democrats, establishment of Democrats and their influencers. So therefore, it is quite a possibility that tomorrow or even today, in a few hours' time, we might hear very different statements, either from Trump or Rubio or some other officials there. Let's see. We're gonna find out, isn't it? Also, dear friends, when it comes to Rubio, Well, he also said that Ukraine deal may never be actually reached. U.S. Secretary of State and acting assistant to the U.S. President for National Security Affairs, Marco Rubio, does not rule out that it will not be possible to reach a peace agreement on Ukraine, which is basically true, by the way, which is true. Globalists definitely are not about peace, and therefore they will do whatever they can to derail any chances of achieving lasting peace. They want this proxy war to continue, by the way, as long as they're possible, because I believe globalists and globalist control regimes in Europe truly believe that only way they can manage to sustain at least current level of influence over their geopolitical processes, or to even survive, is to destroy Russia, break up Russia, and get their hands on Russian riches, right? That's what they are dreaming about, because it seems like they don't want to act fairly, right? They don't want to act fairly, and at the same time they understand that they have no resources to maintain current position, to be competitive on a geopolitical scale. They need these resources, right? And because they are unable to do business with Russia on fair terms, with respect, only way they see forward for themselves is to actually destroy Russia. And they're going to continue these attempts, by the way. They're going to fail, of course. But seems like until they will be forced by Russia and by some other countries potentially to come to their senses and acknowledge reality that they lost, until then they're going to continue their destructive policies, 100%. Also, RIA Novosti is reporting that special envoy of US President Steve Witkoff during interview made quite interesting statements that some of us might agree, some of us don't, but nevertheless, he did make quite a few interesting statements. For example, he said that Russia and the US have agreed on security guarantees for Kiev. I wonder from where this statement of Witkoff is coming from, what security guarantees he's talking about, but nevertheless, that's what report is about. So the United States and Russia have agreed on security guarantees for Ukraine. US President Special Envoy Steve Witkoff said in an interview with the CNN, we were able to get their following concessions. The United States could offer Article 5, for example, protection, which is actually one of the real reasons why Ukraine wants to be in NATO. We were able to get around that and agree that the United States could provide Article 5 type protection, and that was the first time we heard the Russians agree to that, he said, commenting on the summit between Russian and US Presidents Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump. And I have issues with this statement. I don't think Russia will agree on such guarantees, because yet again, if West will maintain control over the regime in Kiev, and if Article 5 type of guarantees are implemented, in that case, what stops globalists to restart the war, by the way, to restart this proxy war against Russia in a couple of months' time or a year or 2 years' time, and then actually trigger US to get engaged with in a full-scale war with Russia? I mean, this is just too risky, by the way. This is very risky stuff that Witkoff is talking about here. And I don't think Moscow is on the same page with Washington on that. Maybe Witkoff misinterpreted some statements of Russian delegation, either Russian president or Russian foreign minister or someone else. I don't know, but that's what he said during the interview on CNN. And it's not just that. Witkoff also went to say that Russia ready for concessions on land swaps with Ukraine. So Russia is ready to make certain concessions as a part of land swaps with Ukraine. US President Donald Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff has claimed Trump will be meeting with Ukraine's Vladimir Zelensky and several Western European leaders at the White House on Monday in a bid to work out a peace deal between Moscow and Kiev. Okay, we all know that. On Friday, Trump held talks with his, I mean, come on, man. There's too many reminders these media outlets are using, by the way. We all know that. We pay attention to developments. Anyways, Witkoff told CNN, by the way, during that interview, that during the Alaska summit, the Russian delegation made some concessions at the table with regard to all 5 of those regions, apparently referring to Crimea, the Donetsk and the Lugansk People's Republics, and Zaporozhye and Kherson regions, all former Ukrainian territories which become part of Russia after referendums. And yet again, I have difficulty to believe in this statement of Witkoff. Maybe he's making such statements for domestic audience to paint the picture that U.S. is stronger. It's Russia that is making all the concessions. It's Russia that losing this war, not the U.S. and not the collective West. They love to paint false narratives, isn't it, in the West, constantly, by the way. And maybe these statements of Witkoff is just that, to paint some false narrative for domestic purposes, for domestic politics and viewers, because I don't think Russia will make any concessions in regards to any of the Russian new regions. I don't think this is even a topic of discussion. It's not even in a conversation, by the way, not possible, right? But nevertheless, let me give you, dear friends, let me give you some short videos of some of the statements that Witkoff made. It's better to listen to him while he's talking about this.
Robust security guarantees that I would describe as game-changing. We didn't think that we were anywhere close to agreeing to Article 5 protection from the United States, in legislative enshrinement within the Russian Federation, not to go after any other territory when the peace deal is codified, legislative enshrinement in the Russian Federation, not to go after any other European countries and violate their sovereignty. So we agreed to there was plenty more.
So in this particular case, Witkoff is talking about some major breakthrough in terms of some security guarantees. He is mentioning that Russia will apply itself not to attack any European countries. Russian leadership was very clear on many occasions that Moscow has no plans to attack nobody, if not provoke. Moscow has no intent to be hostile towards anybody, by the way. It's just so simple, right? But nevertheless, Witkoff find it necessary, I guess, to say stuff like that, failing basically for globalist propaganda that if not today, tomorrow, Moscow gonna attack some NATO member states, which is crazy, which is absolutely crazy stuff to say. But nevertheless, that's the narratives that they are pushing, isn't it, from the West? Another short clip, by the way, from statements of very same Witkoff.
Sessions on several of the regions. I'm not going to discuss it now. The Ukrainians are aware of it, as are the Europeans, and it was significant, and that doesn't mean it's enough. But the point was that we began to see some moderation in the way they're thinking about getting to a final peace deal. And so we feel that that's encouraging. Now, we briefed the Europeans immediately after we were done with the summit. We briefed President Zelensky directly. He deserved that, and the president got right on the phone with him. And then we had the Europeans on the phone, and I think everybody agreed that we had made progress. Maybe not enough for a peace deal, but we're on the path for the first time. We are seeing accommodation more than we've seen in the past, certainly more than we saw in the last administration. And that's encouraging. Now we have to build on that. And we have to get a deal for the Ukrainians that allows for their self-determination, allows a protection of their sovereign borders. We have to make sure that we achieve that, and the president is intent on getting to that place.
So yet again, by the way, statements from Witkoff that somewhat contradict each other. On one hand, he's saying that progress was made and all sides agree. All sides agree on that, and he was meaning a conversation that Trump had with Zelensky and some of the European leaders, so basically leaders of this coalition of willing, so-called, which is not really true, because leadership of the West, Europeans, by the way, let's say European countries, and media outlets that they control through different means, they are in full meltdown, right? After Anchorage summit, they are not happy about current developments at all. So I don't see how these European leaders agree that some progress was made. But nevertheless, it's a Witkoff writer. Maybe he's talking about this stuff again. I mean, for some domestic audience only. I don't know. But same time, dear friends, he is mentioning sovereignty of Ukraine and protection of its borders. Point is, I mean, which borders? If we're talking about Ukraine after Soviet Union collapse, then that Ukraine in that borders will never exist. Never. It's impossible, right? After all, Crimea and new Russian regions are part of Russia, obviously. So, yet again, when you are listening to these Western representatives, quite often they are making statements that contradict their other statements, right? And creates more confusion than understanding about matters. But nevertheless, that's what Witkoff has said. Yet again, this is clearly an attempt, by the way, on the side of U.S. administration to paint the picture, false picture, in my understanding, that it's Russia that is agreeing on the concession, not the U.S., not the collective West. It's Russia, right? Which is obviously not true, by the way. It's a collective West, including U.S., that is on the losing side, on the wrong side of history, and on the losing side. And when it comes to concessions, they are exactly the side that are gonna agree on that, and they are on that page exactly, right? They're gonna agree on de-escalation. On at least Washington seems to be on the same page, that they want to get out of this proxy war, because there is nothing for U.S. in that. Globalist control regimes in Europe, European so-called elites, they might, in their sick mind, they might come up with some justifications why they have to be engaged in this proxy war against Russia, and why they are dreaming about destroying Russia, dividing it, and grabbing its riches. But U.S. is in a very different position. There is nothing for U.S. in this proxy war in the long term, right? And if this realization kicks in among America First forces, and seems like that's exactly what is happening, then not necessarily publicly, but behind the closed doors, Washington will, and most likely already did, agree on concessions to Russia. Hello everyone, I hope you find informative and useful this short clip from main news update, and if so, please click that like button and leave some commentary just about anything. It might help to deal with the algorithm and reach wider audience. And if you like my work in general and want to support to save this media project, you can assist through several ways. You can donate to this project through PayPal platform or Boosty, also with crypto currencies, or you can subscribe to my Patreon page and page on Boosty, where I have quite a lot of extra content on regular basis. All the links are on this video in description box and in the pinned comment. And of course, many thanks to everyone who already helped and continues to support. Thank you.